because of inflation, because of just life, prices will always go up over time. In some markets, they'll go up faster than others, right? The better the neighborhood, the higher the appreciation, the faster the appreciation. But because of inflation alone, you're going to get rent price increases, value increases, and that's what makes, investing in real estate so powerful.
What is up, beautiful people? Episode 116 of Scorch the Fears. We have the amazing Casey Franchini. I've been following her on Instagram for a little bit. I thought she was really cool. Wanted her to come on the podcast. She was so nice to come on. And yeah, Casey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here today.
I love it. So real quick, for my audience, for the people that don't know you, just do a quick background, just like sum it up real estate resume, just so that everyone on here can get like a little bit about you, just resume wise. And then yeah, let's just start there.
Awesome. So my name is Casey and I invest in single family rentals the old school vanilla way. And we have currently 8 long-term rental properties here in Memphis, plus our primary. And yeah, I also teach new investors how to buy real estate. So that's kind of my focus. I am in real estate like every single day.
I love it. I love it. So I always start this. This is about fears, right? I mean, owning 8 single family rentals, people are like, hey, that's going to cost a lot of money. What happens if the house catches on fire? Like, what if the tenant I need to evict a tenant? Everybody has these fears, right? So when you were starting off, what were the fears you were dealing with and how did you overcome them?
This is such a really good question. And we started investing in 2016, but this fear question is so awesome because it brings me all the way back to 2010. So back in 2007, I got my real estate broker license. So I was a real estate agent and I specialized in helping flippers find good flips, right? I understood rehab and contracting because my dad used to fix houses. So they used me as their free gas and car to get all around Southern California and try and find them flips. So around that time, I was starting to understand how amazing real estate investing was. I didn't really want to flip because I didn't realize creative financing at the time, and I didn't know how I was going to get $1 million to flip these Orange County homes. But I knew I wanted to buy rental properties. So 2010, my brand new husband and I said, we're going to buy rental properties right now. I was a real estate agent, so I understood all that. I knew how to fix up houses. So I was like, let's do this. So we went around and made over 40 offers on potential long-term rental properties in the Inland Empire, which is in Southern California. And we didn't get any of them. Not one. We were in contract on some. We would counter back and forth on some. We even went through the inspection period on some, but something was just holding me back, holding both of us back from taking the next step and actually closing on a deal. I didn't know what it was at the time until I moved to Memphis in 2013, and we started really buying properties in 2016. What the fear was that was holding us back was the fear of the unknown. Even though I had some experience doing some parts of real estate investing, I wasn't quite sure about the other parts. And I didn't have a dang person to ask questions to because in California, everybody buys flips. Like no one's really buy and hold long-term rental properties. It's a flipper's paradise. So I only knew one person who owned a rental property, and it was this girl in my real estate office, this older lady. She had bought a new home and she was renting out her condo that she lived in. And then my friend Mikey's grandma owned 10 rental properties. I didn't even know his grandma, but that's the extent of people I knew who had this investment knowledge. And back then there wasn't social media or courses or anything that could teach me, about real estate investing. So my fears were, what if it doesn't rent out? What if I buy a money pit? What if I bought in the wrong area? What if nobody rents it? What if I'm totally wrong on my numbers and I buy a negative cash flowing property? We can't afford that. And then now we bought an asset that we can't really get rid of. So we had so many fears back in 2010. It completely halted us from actually following through and buying anything. And it wasn't until I met someone who helped me with my first deal that I actually was able to overcome the fears, because I had someone to validate or not validate what I was doing right or wrong.
I love it. I love it so much. So let's talk about that, right? I mean, this is a common thing where people just start off, they don't know what they're doing. They either do a bad deal or not sure what's going on. I've done it. Every real estate investor does a bad deal where they should have asked like a mentor or somebody, and then they lose money on it, right? So it sounds like lucky. Tell me if I'm wrong. It sounds lucky in the sense that before you did a bad deal, you found a mentor. You just weren't getting any contracts. Am I right?
So we never really found bad deals. And I was lucky that I really did know my stuff. Even back then, I was just scared. But when we moved to Memphis, I had said to Blake, my husband, I go, we're not going to chicken out. Like last time we made 40 offers and we didn't do a dang thing. Looking back now, those properties, they were $145,000 to $175,000. Then they're over 600 now. I still have the addresses in my email box. As a matter of fact, a
Nice.
couple of days ago, I looked them up and I'm like, oh, if only I had, just done it. But the reason why we why we didn't go through with those first deals, but how did we get to the second one was by asking for help. Now, the house that we bought that we're still in today, I guess 10 plus years later, somehow I knew the listing agent and her husband owned rental properties in the area. I don't remember exactly how I knew that, but I did. So a couple years later, after us living here, when Blake and we had a brand new baby and everything, but when we were finally ready to start investing, and I was like, okay, no more chickening out, we're going to do it. I said, we're going to do it with help of someone else. So I reached out to that lady. I was like, I'm sure you don't remember me, but this house that we bought, you were the listing agent, and I heard that you own rentals. Would you help me kind of buy my first rental property out here and show me the ropes? So she said, well, I don't really do that, but my husband does that, so he'll be happy to show you. So we met with him, and if it weren't for him, I swear we would not have gotten one.
Gotcha. I love it. So really cool. You met your mentor, right? Or the person who's done it before and you consider a mentor. How did you find this person? How did you make the connection? Why were they willing to teach you and take time out of their day, right? Like what made it a really good relationship?
Yeah, so like I said, the listing agent to the primary that we bought, I knew they owned rentals. So I just called them 3 years later and said, hey, will you help me? And she's like, my husband will be happy to show you. And so I met with him, and he just loved someone that was interested in rental properties. He didn't really know a lot of people who invested, and he picked me up from my house and he drove me all around and showed me all his houses. And this is something funny to note. Okay. So he drives me through this neighborhood that we did end up buying properties in. And he's like, yeah, back like 20 years ago, when I bought these houses, they were like, $20,000 and $30,000. And then at the time they were renting for $700 a month. I wouldn't buy anything here now, he says, right? Because he had invested in that area so long ago that now it's cost so much more money. He doesn't see the point. Well, we ended up buying there, and those houses now, where I don't think it was 20 years ago, maybe 10, but it was, the houses that we bought there were between $60,000 and $80,000, and they rented for $900 a month. And he was balking at us buying one there in that price point. But now, 8 years later, those houses are $130,000 to $150,000. So so many people hear, oh, well, prices are too high, I'm not going to buy. Prices are too high, I'm not going to buy. Because of inflation, because of just life, prices will always go up over time. In some markets, they'll go up faster than others, right? The better the neighborhood, the higher the appreciation, the faster the appreciation. But because of inflation alone, you're going to get rent price increases, value increases. And that's what makes, investing in real estate so powerful.
So I love it. It makes total sense. One of the most common questions, especially for buy and hold investors, is so how do you get all the money for 8 rentals, right? Is it just being a realtor? Is it like where are you using any private money? How are you doing it?
Sure, that's a really good question. And you are so right. 100% of the time, I get that question asked to me daily on Instagram. So, and why I said in the beginning, we are vanilla. So we do save up and we buy rental properties one at a time with our own money. We buy about one a year. So it's not fancy. I'm not some huge guru with 100 units and a Lamborghini, but we have high equity and we get high cash flow. We don't cash out, refinance any of our properties either. Now, let me back up, because people go, yeah, you must make a lot of money. Well, no. When we moved to Memphis, that was my perk. I was a stay-at-home mom. I was not going to go back to work. So we were living on a single income. My husband wasn't even making six figures, and we still were able to buy one rental property a year on average. So it just goes to show that when you put your mind to something, you make it happen. When we bought this house we're living in now, it was a complete fixer. It was a 1970s like nightmare, avocado green tile in the bathroom. We had blue Formica cabinets and countertops in the kitchen, and old 1950s painted white cabinets. And that thing was a gutter from the beginning, that kitchen. But you know what we said every single year for about 8 years? We said, now we've been here now 11 years. We said every year, would we rather put $30,000 into a new kitchen, or would we rather put $30,000 into a rental property? And every time I asked myself that, I said, well, my kitchen is not going to make me money. So I guess I'm going to buy a rental property, and we're going to just tighten those screws on those cabinet doors just a little bit tighter. We did that for 8 years. So sacrificing where you can is where you can get the money.
I love it. It makes sense. So that's a cool way, because honestly, most of the people I know, like, always doing crazy stuff, creative financing, not doing it the vanilla way. What I like about that is people always make excuses, right? Everyone's constantly making excuses about why they can't do it. And even if it's like, oh, I don't know seller financing, I don't know subject to, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do that. I really like the fact that you're just like, no, we just did it the normal way, right? Like, we just saved up money and then bought a house every single year, right? And then just by doing that, I mean, doing that for 8 years, owning 8 houses, like, how much equity do you think you have now in these houses?
I mean, over $1 million, and we
Right.
bring in 145,000 a year in rental income. Way more than half of that is net, So it's amazing.
Nice.
Like the first property that we bought in 2016, it nets me over 900 a month. And we bought that house on a 20-year loan. So our payment is even higher. I would never do that again. It's almost paid off. I think we only owe like $40,000 on it. We bought it for $92,500, and it rents for $1,525. And when the guy moves out, it'll probably be $1,650. So we'll have over 1,000 in cash flow from one house. So time is the secret to investing in real estate. It's not how many houses and properties and multifamilies can I get in 1 year. To me, that puts you at a very high risk point, especially if you're doing 5/1 ARMs and balloon payments and things that are very risky. I'm a very low risk person. My parents spent all their money, growing up. When I was growing up, they spent all their money. They did not save much. And they ended up living on, they're still alive, but they live on the equity of their home, right? They bought some small, tiny house in Mexico on the beach for really cheap, and they live on the equity from their California house. I did not ever want to be like that. I wanted to make sure that I had so much money available. So I knew that I didn't want to risk it. Now I know no risk, no reward, but that's not necessarily true. It's high risk and high reward. But if you just take the slow and steady path, the one that's guaranteed, there is no chance of failure. Even time will eat up your failures if you screw up with long-term rentals.
Yeah, that's the cool thing. I mean, that's how I see long-term rentals, right? I find it very hard. Like, for most long-term rentals, why it makes sense most of the time is if you're, I think, actually putting down a down payment. So many of my friends are like, yeah, do it with no money out of your pocket, use private money investors. But then that's going to eat up all your cash flow, right? And then it is riskier, right? And it's definitely like a much riskier strategy where you got to be like careful if you're going to do that, right? So I love it. Where are you finding your houses? Just the MLS? Are you just using agents normal way?
Yep. So use agents the normal way, and we've gotten a few off-market deals. And the easiest way to get off-market deals is to talk to the neighbors of the houses that you buy. So we own 4 of our houses. 2 of them are right next door, and the other 2 of them are right across the street. Their numbers are sequential in addresses. And it's just from telling the neighbors when we buy a house, hi, well, what I really do is I say, first of all, they all want to come see the rehab, because we rehab all of our own properties and we're there forever, all the time, bring our kids. So they
Okay.
come out and see us, but then when the property is done, I'll usually go invite them over to come see because everybody wants to see inside. So I'll go invite the neighbors over and I'll say, hey, my name is Casey. I'm the owner. I'm going to, and I hate to say this part, I'm going to rent it out. Nobody wants a renter next door, but
Mhm.
oh well. So I do. And I say, here's my card. Please let me know if there's any trouble at this property. And if the tenants are being, bad or misbehaving or whatever, please let me know. And really just that alone tells them, hey, these people care. And we've gotten phone calls from neighbors saying, we want you to buy our house. Are you looking to buy? Because they hear you're an investor. They see that I'm a good person. They see that I fix up the house's quality because they saw inside. And they see that I put in good tenants. My tenants don't have problems. I've learned that the hard way. And that was one thing that my mentor didn't teach me, was how to landlord. So I've made my fair share of mistakes through that aspect. But so I put in good tenants now. And so the neighbors are appreciative of me owning properties on their street. And I have bought a couple off market from them just giving me a phone call.
So talk to us a little bit about that. How do you find a good tenant? How do you screw it up and how do you do it well?
So when you find tenants, when you put one in, you have to rip your heart out and put it on the floor. That's it. Step on it, smash it, put it in a box, lock it away with a key. Because when it comes to landlording or self-managing your real estate, you have to know that it's a business. And there's so many nice people out there. And us landlords are so nice and we want to be so giving and so understanding and so helpful. But in all the years that I've been doing this, it's never been reciprocated. Offer them to pay late with no late fee, or split payments, or, oh, you got that dog, well, that's okay. All it does is show that you're weak and they trample and walk all over you. So the most important thing you can do is have a very strict quality of tenants. So how you have a strict standard with your tenant screening. I have a massive, I feel like, tenant screening process. I really end up only going to show properties to tenants that I already want to rent to because I've talked to them over the phone and I've pre-screened them enough. And I'm not afraid to ask questions like, where do you work? How much do you make? I know that's an invasive question, but I'm not going to get in my car, take time out of my day to go show a property to someone who is already not qualified from the get-go. So I require tenants to absolutely make 3 times the rent. They also need to have a 2-year of employment history at the same job. The same job is preferred. I don't require it, especially if you have moved up or gotten a raise or, whatever promotion. But if you're going from Target employee to horse trainer to cleaning floors at a hospital, and you've got several jobs over a 1-year span, that tells me more about the character of the person. That tells me that they can't hold down a job. Maybe tells me that they're not reliable and they don't show up on time. Why do they have so many random different jobs? So I don't like that. I like my tenants to have a steady job, for sure 1 year, but 2 years preferred. And I really want to see a nice rental history from other landlords. And when I do call to verify, I don't call I will call the last landlord, but I will call the one before, because the current place that they're at now, they might be a terrible tenant. And the guy on the phone is going to say anything to get them out. So calling the last one is not the best practice. The best practice is to call the one before. And also definitely run a credit report. I like a higher credit score, no less than 650. And if there is something less than 650, then there needs to be somebody else on the lease that has a higher credit score, right? That's what I want to see. I don't want to see any evictions. To me, that's an automatic no. I don't care if you're freaking God. If you have an eviction, that's a middle finger for me. And I'm like, no, if you can't respect your landlord and leave when you break the rules, which is the only reason why you would get evicted, I don't want you in my house either. And I'm not a second chance landlord. So I want cream of the crop tenants. And I get that by providing a exceptional place to live, amazing communication, and a fair rent price.
I like it. I like it a lot. So, what are the fears that came true? Like, there must have been some fears that you had when you were just starting out, right? Not everything. I already know real estate investing. Not everything is roses and sunshine. So, what were some of the fears you might have had beforehand that were like, "Damn, this actually did happen," right? And
Some
like,
of
how did you handle it, and how bad was it?
My biggest fear was putting in a tenant who destroyed my property and didn't pay rent, because we put in so much work into our properties ourselves. We rehab literally ourselves. Like, I was 8 months pregnant, crowbarring up hardwood floors on a renovation. So much legit blood, sweat, and tears go into these properties. I couldn't have fathomed someone disrespecting me and trashing it. Well, it happened. And it was before I did thorough credit reports and thorough, tenant screening. And I put in a lady and her fiance who, they made the money, but I didn't run credit. They felt good to me, like, the gut feeling, oh, they seem fine. I put him in. Everything was fine until he moved out. She caught him cheating. She kicked him out. She begged me to let her stay because her kids were in school and they were doing well. But he was a breadwinner and she didn't make enough. She didn't make 3 times the rent. But, they had been paying rent on time. And if they were late, they paid the late fee, no problem. And so I was like, okay, fine, get your second job, see if you can make it work. It just went downhill from there. They smoked cigarettes and marijuana in the property, and they had tons of incense. They got pit bulls. And I only found out because I own the house across the street. And I drove by that house and saw a little doggy in the window, and I knocked on the door, and she's like, oh, well, I was going to tell you about that. I'm like, sure you were. She ended up, and this is just a terrible story for all people, especially dog lovers, but she got a pit bull, then another pit bull. They had babies unbeknownst to me. But after they had finally moved out, the neighbor told me that she left those 7 little doggies in a crate outside when it froze, and they all died. OMG. And the boyfriend that was now there, put him in a trash bag. I'm just like, oh my God. But when we finally kicked her out, we walked into the property, my husband and I, and we were immediately jumped on by zillions of fleas. And we ran out so freaking fast, your head would spin. So after letting them, we did what we needed to do to get rid of the fleas and the cockroaches. We had to let the property sit for 30 days so that all the flea eggs would die, that they crawl under the baseboards. She had stolen all of my appliances. She had painted my kitchen cabinets a gray color and put this sticky film stuff all over my Formica countertops. She had incense stuck in the walls. The dogs had peed. The house had white carpet before, and it came that way. I didn't put it in, but it was perfect. And it was shielding and saving the beautiful hardwood floors underneath. And I was like, okay, well, whenever the tenants, wear and tear the carpet, then we'll take it up and we'll shine up the floors. Well, the dogs had peed so much over the floors. First of all, the ammonia smell was unbearable. And my wood floors were completely ruined to the point where they weren't even refinishable. So and she backed into my garage door with her car when she was drunk. She admitted, and broke the glass security door. She says her son hit it with a basketball. Like, it was just a myriad. They cut a hole through my vinyl fence so their dogs could get between houses. I'm just like, what? So it was a nightmare, and I let it go on for way too long. My opinion of the matter was at the time, well, she's already screwed up my property so fast from the beginning. Let me just kick the can down the road because she's paying. I'm going to have to redo that anyways, whether it be now or later. So it ended up being later, and later cost me $16,000 to get the house redone, not including missed rent, which was only 1 month because I was over it and she didn't get a lot of extra time from me. But I just said, get out, and she left, and I don't want to see her again.
Casey, where can people find you? What's the program that you're talking about? Who's the right person to do the program? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. So you can find me on my website, brickbybrickwealth.com. And my 2 socials that I'm most active on are Instagram, brickbybrickwealth, as well as YouTube, brickbybrickwealth. And if anyone's interested in learning more about my coaching program, it's called Success with Rental Properties. You can email me, Casey@brickbybrickwealth.com, and I'll send you some info about it, a video to watch, and see if it's right for you. But it's for new real estate investors looking for a hand-holding and help through their first experience, their first rental property experience. It's a great program, a lot of high touch from me, so you get to see me all the time, and get your rental in the next couple months. Get it done.
I love it. And then where do you buy? Is it just Memphis, or is there any other cities?
That's Memphis for now. Like I said, we were going to buy this out-of-state lake house, which didn't come to fruition last week. So I don't want too many more houses in Memphis. Politics are a thing. I can see rent control coming down the line. So I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. We might buy a couple more here, but we'll be utilizing my out-of-state market knowledge to start investing in some other markets. Plus, I won't have to manage, so it'll be a little stress reliever.
I love it. I love it so much. Well, Casey, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Do you have any last words before I end this thing?
I just want to say thanks for having me on, and for everyone that's listening to this podcast. Fears are a part of everyday life. Everybody has fears all the time. I mean, even Elon Musk has fears. Okay, so the best thing you can do is to push yourself through the fear. Is to take action and going through it. There's no going around. There's no going over. You go through the fear. Do the action that you're afraid of, and then you won't be afraid of it anymore.
I love it. I love it so much. Casey, thank you so much. Guys, we'll be on, I think we'll be at our regular time, 6 p.m. next week. MST, the week after that, I'm going to be at a wedding, but I appreciate all of you guys so much. Casey, you were amazing. That is Scorch the Fears, episode 116. Let's frigging go.